So as a part of your continued preparation for the test, as I said, today I'm going to give you a variety of word questions to try to show you how something that's presented even in words, you are going to be asked to convert it into a mathematical equation so that you can use the equation to solve not just proportional reasoning. A lot of people, even through the bungee jumping, I see you. I see that you are still trying to use words to explain. I want you to now get to a point where you can use an equation to explain. Let's break this down. Example number 1 and 2 are relatively similar, but I'm going to do it like, you've never seen something like this. Okay. Here we go. Annual salary, the relationship, it tells you already, the relationship of X and Y between an employee's annual salary and the number of years. There's a relationship between salary and years of experience is linear. Dun, 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 dun. That means we are dealing with Y equals mx plus b. Okay. With each additional year of experience, the annual salary increases by 4,000. Now that gives you a big hint. An employee with 8 years of experience earns an annual salary of 71,000. Okay, let's break it down. Let's pretend you have no idea what's going on. Let's literally read the question to see what we can pull out. Number 1, it tells me that there is a relationship between this and that. It's in your best interest. Figure out what's X and what's Y. So let X represent something and let Y represent something. Tell me, what depends on what? Does the salary change the number of years, or does the years change the number of salary? You have to figure that out first. Right. So X represents the years. That's the independent. So years of experience, right? Why? Because if you have more of that, it will change salary in dollars. So that is dependent. Why do I feel it's important that you write the let statements? It will also tell you what the rate of change might be. Remember, if this is my X and that is my Y, my rate of change or my slope should be some kind of money per number of years. Can you find that from the wording? Some amount of money per number of years. Abby?
Is it $4,000 per year?
Correct.
So it's not for each year?
Oh, for every additional 1 year. So the change in my salary is 4,000 per 1 year. Which means I have my Y, I have my M, and I have my X. They don't tell me B, but you can figure it out. An employee with 8 years of experience. So let me do it in red now. 8 years means X equals 8. Annual salary of 71, that means my Y is 71,000. So let's write this down. M is 4,000 per year over 1, right? X is my 8. My Y is my 71,000. Does that look familiar from Friday's lesson? I don't have B, but you have M, and you've got X and Y. Abby? We just calculated it based on the question. Right? Your salary will go up by a positive 400 for every 1 year. 4,000.
Okay.
So
So.
correct. Okay. Correct. Theo, stop being a jerk. Okay. The reason why I don't want you wording it that way, and I'm forcing the equation on you, is because there are so many relationships from grade 9 on that's not linear anymore. And so let's practice using the equation so that you can deal with equations that do something like this, where you can't see how high you go right away. It's not so simple anymore. So let's do it. At this point in time, I'm gonna say, see Friday lesson, because you will see questions where you have an M and you have an X and you have a Y. If you did your homework, this should seem so familiar to you. Y equals mx plus b, right? We have y equals m x plus b. And what Sloan and Antio were saying is literally what you need to do algebraically. You first multiply the 4,000 by 8, and then you're going to isolate for b to figure out what my initial value is. B. So 71,000 is equal to 32,000 plus b. And then let me isolate. I will subtract 32,000 from both sides. And you can confirm with me, but you will get the b value to be 39000. So the equation is y equals slope x plus 39,000. Just to make sure we understand what this equation is, what does a 39,000 represent? That's
salary like this
first year. You get hired at 39,000, which isn't bad as an entry-level job. It's not the best, but it's not the worst for sure in this day and age. Yes.
So that would be like, if we were to be on the ground, that would be my detail.
Correct. Sorry. That makes sense because if the number of years I worked was a 0, 4,000 times a 0 is nothing. Y would equal just 39,000. Graphically, if my X value was a 0, my Y value would be 39,000, and I'm going up by 4,000 every single year. Yes.
So you put 32,000 is kind of 71.
Correct. And you just said, you have to subtract, right? So you're doing algebra like with your number sense, which is great, but I'm still gonna try to push you for equations. Why? Well, we got some other things that if you have the equation, it's really annoying to find, sure. But once you have it, the rest of this becomes really fast. Take a look at part B. Determine the annual salary. So what is Y? If you worked 12 years, if your years of experience is 12, AKA X is 12. All you have to do then is take the equation because it will follow the same pattern forever. Put in time as 12 years and have your starting salary. You're plugging it in. So what is Y when X is 12? 4,000 times 12, that's 48,000 added to 39,000. That gives you 787000. Now, at your age, just to be realistic, at your age, working 12 years and getting a pay raise of 48,000 may not seem like a bad deal. But I imagine as you get that much older, you're hitting your mid-30s, Your expenses are getting higher. You may feel that to be tight in real life. And so with your 12 years of experience, maybe you look for something that's more beneficial for you. Right? It's a great segue into what happens in real life. And I don't mean to ostracize the next generation, but as I was growing up, a lot of my friends loved to jump ship because they felt they deserved better. They went into a company, worked like 6 months and said, this is beneath me. And then they jumped ship. I don't know if that was a legitimate jump ship or if that was just, you know, they didn't like the company because it didn't fit their lifestyle or whatever. If you are aiming towards, you know, growth, don't necessarily do it for money. Definitely do it to learn something. Because before you jump ship for the sake of money, as you jump ship, you're taking with you a skill, taking with you knowledge, which is more valuable. And in the end, that's what's going to keep you growing more powerful and more wealthy, blah, blah, blah. Pardon? Essentially, it's called a know-how in the business world, right? Just because you took business courses in university doesn't mean you can run a business, right? Even if you didn't go to school, if you know how to set up a business, someone will hire you for your know-how because you have experience that they don't. So yeah, that's how you scale and sell a service and not an hourly wage. Last one, for how long would you have to work at the company to earn this much? So take a look at how they ask. They say, how long? How long? Time. They're asking, what would X be if my salary, AKA my Y value, is 147,000? So, Jesse, hang in there. If you need a walk, go for it, but I need you to stay awake. So look at the convenience of having an equation. Again, you don't have to do any more work after you have the equation. It's just isolation. Do you recognize how to solve for X from unit 5 from algebra? I'm going to subtract both sides by 39,000. Believe me. 108,000 equals 4,000. X. And then isolate X, divide both sides by 4,000, giving me 2,7, I believe. Yeah. So what does that mean? If I want a salary of $150,000 a year, then you would have to work or get 27 years of experience needed. Yes, Andrew.
I see how you got 27. What did you bring the 4,000 over? Would you just subtract it?
I see. No, it would still be a division because the 4,000 is being multiplied with the X. So to get rid of the multiplication and the division. Yeah. Just be careful. Again, it's all just, don't underestimate this. Every single step, there's a logical reason, and it is easy to be careless. I highly encourage you to take your time with it until you get used to it. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Now, while people are copying, example 2 is very similar. I'm going to ask you to see if you can create an equation. What does that mean? You need a slope, you need a y-intercept. Let me break down this question for you, and then you can try it. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. Pretend this was your test question. You are doing your test cold right now, without study, based on what you have so far. Here we go. Once this parachute is open, a skydiver descends at a rate of 25 feet per second. Keyword, per second. That should give you a hint. That's I'm going down by 25 feet per second. Think about what that represents in an equation. Next. green. 90 seconds after the parachute opens, the altitude is 2750. Notice how this question doesn't tell you what the relationship is. It expects you to figure out what the x is and what the y is. Based on the slope itself, can you tell me what the x and y might be? Let's start with some let statements. Let x represent and let y represent. See if you can do it and create an equation. Just another 30 seconds. See if you can establish this. And if you don't know, take a guess. And maybe you can tell yourself why that might have been wrong if you're wrong. And if you're right, figure out why it was right. Yeah. Moving on in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please take a look. Just from looking at your rate of change, your slope, it might have given you a clue that this is your y value and that's your x value, right? Because that's the change in. So x represents time after parachute is open. Okay, and let's call that in seconds. Y will represent the feet, aka altitude. Okay. Yep. Yes, this would be m. Absolutely. It actually gives it to you. But using that as my clue, I know my y value is always on top, right? Rise over run. So I'm using that as a clue this time. My m is -25. Do they give me the initial value? No. But they give you something else. Question, Andrew? Oh, well, the question said it descends. I'm going down because it's a parachute, so it sort of makes sense. I am losing altitude, right? What else? Everyone notice? Yep. What is the y and the x? Yes. They give you a circumstance. They give you a scenario, right? So pay attention to where I start and how I move. At 90 seconds, the altitude was 2750. In other words, I have m, I have x, I have y. Again, does that look familiar? Plug it in and find me an equation. So y equals, remember, mx plus b. Y equals m x plus b, which is equal to -25 times 90. I got -2,250. Yep, I'm not done. Pardon? Again, let's go back. If you want to determine an equation, what you're looking for is both m and b, if you have those two. So right now, my goal is to get that every time. I actually plugged in x right here. That is my x. Normally, it would be -25x plus b. But remember, if my x is 90, my y becomes this. So that's why the x doesn't appear, because I've actually substituted x as 90. Next one. Once again, based on the question, I'm assuming it's negative because it says that they are descending. I'm getting lower and lower and lower. My altitude is decreasing, so I must be subtracting every step of the way. Okay, moving on. If I want to isolate for B, I will have to add both sides by 2250, which gives me 5,000. What does that mean? Putting all of this together, let me erase this, I don't need it. Y equals negative 25x plus 5,000. And just to remind you, I need my M, I need my B. And you can solve that because they give you 1 point on the line. And again, why would you go through all this when you could do mental math and you can figure it out by yourself, blah, blah, blah. Once you get the equation, every other inquiry, every other question you have is super easy to solve. Take a look at part B. Let's do a second one. Use your equation to determine the skydiver's altitude after the parachute has been open for 2 minutes. And remember, we've been defining the time as seconds. So convert it. 2 minutes equals 120 seconds. Super important. Put little stars next to it, right? You can't convert it. We set up our equation based on a slope of per second. You can't suddenly change it into minutes. Okay? Keep units constant. Keep units the same. Super important. So here we go. Y equals negative 25 times the time plus 5,000 equals 25 times 120, 3,000. So minus 3,000 plus 500. This is 2,000. So you say, therefore, after 2 minutes, the altitude is 2,000 feet. Could I ask you to think a little bit for letter C? I think if you read the question, you may be able to figure out which of X and Y do they give you and which of X and Y they're asking for. I'll give you a minute and I'll walk around. Try it now, please. I am getting a lot of interesting takes on it. Some people are like, yeah, this makes sense. Some people are like, I still don't quite understand. Consider this. So as soon as you open up the parachute, we are following this equation. Long story short, I didn't talk about this yet, but it's a good thing to note. This is the starting value. If the amount of time that I open the parachute is 0 seconds, that's my initial height, initial altitude. So this basically says I pulled the parachute at 5,000 feet. That's where I start. Now, with that said, once it's open, how long, in other words, what's my time, does it take for the skydiver to reach the ground? Well, that means my altitude is a 0. What they're asking for is, what is X if my Y is 0? So I'm going to isolate. Subtract both sides by 5,000 allows me to isolate for the X term. And dividing both sides by negative 25 allows me to isolate for the X itself. And this gets me, I believe, 200. Therefore, it takes 200 seconds to reach the ground. Not for the full skydive, of course, but from the moment that they pull their parachute. Andrew? 200. I divided both sides by -25. Yep, like that. Because I wanted to get x all alone, and right now x is being multiplied by -25. So just like the previous question, you're multiplying by -25, so I have to divide by -25, and you get x all alone. So algebra. Abby, question? I thought you raised your hand. Anyone else? No? Okay. All right. You will see questions like this. So again, if this was a test question, how would you fare? You need more practice? We'll get more practice. If you're feeling confident, good for you. Right? Everyone's at a different point. I'm giving 2 more examples. I think I'll just do the 3rd example because the 4th one is very similar. I think you can try that and then check with me before you go. Example 3, I wonder how many people recognize this kind of question from their homework. Indoor playground. To host a children's party at an indoor playground, a family pays a non-refundable deposit plus an additional amount for each child attending. If, think about X and Y, okay? Think about dependent and independent. If 10 children attend, the total is 380. If 15 attend, the total is 440. What's X and what's Y in this case? What's the independent? What's the dependent? Yep. Yep. Good. If that is true, using this knowledge, this portion right here, and this portion right here gives you some really important information. Not yet, but yes, we're getting there. Those 2 sentences, those 2 colors, tell you something really important that you will need. It gives you 2 points. Consider this. Number of children, cost. Number of children, cost. I give you 2 points. Suddenly, does that look familiar? Like some of the questions we did on Friday. Yeah, and look what they're asking. They're asking, determine the cost per child. Keyword, per. They're asking for slope. They're asking for, and a long line. 380, so Y is on top, X is on the bottom. Yes, Andrew? What? Oh no, sorry, this is XY. It's a coordinate. Yeah, I know. Now that I see it, because we were working with thousands before, I totally get it. So that's actually X and Y. And so if I were to solve this, this is -60 over -5. And if I solve that further, 380 minus 440 will give you a -60. Yep. No, you can do that too, but you will both of us will get +12. Regardless, because negative divided by negative, they will cancel each other out. So determine the additional cost per child. Each child costs $12. Therefore. I hope this looks familiar. Having 2 points can get you a slope. And with a slope, you can calculate the equation. Anyone know how to go from here? If my m value is a 12, it's from your Friday question. Really think about it. Other than the typical people who raise their hands, I'm looking for you. I guess.
300 equals 12, 10 plus B.
Not 300, but 380. But yes, you're correct. So what are we doing? This looks exactly, at this point in time, this is literally an example 1, example 2 question. This was just like the 2 questions we've done. You have a slope. You have a random point. You can choose it. So I'll choose a smaller number. Okay? Y, remember, is equal to mx plus b. So y equals m x plus b. Look familiar? The hardest part is already done. We can create an equation. I will solve the rest. Questions, Lynn?
For questions, really. Can you just pick like a random point, or if you just or do like
You will always leave the equation blank with x and y blank, and then you let the question tell you one of those 2 numbers, and you'll get the other one.
So with this thing, y bracket plus 260.
Yes, yes. So we'll get there, okay? So b is now subtract 120 from both sides to get b all alone. And Andrew, notice that I am subtracting this time because what's separating these 2 is an addition. Yeah. So subtract both sides, you get b as this. Therefore, my equation is 12x and 260. Just to make sure you understand what each number represents. What is 260 here? What the heck is it? There's a meaning behind everything, so you need to know. What if I gave you that as a multiple choice question? Fun? Yeah, this is mathematically the initial value. By initial value, it's when I have 0 children. Why do I have to pay if I have no children coming? Remember the question said, yeah, it says a non-refundable deposit, which is pretty common nowadays because of COVID, right? If you book something, they want money for it. You can't cancel last minute. So yeah, there it is. So here's my equation. Part C. I'll do this quickly and then we're literally done for today. I just need you to practice test questions. How much would it cost to host a party with 26 children? So how much would it cost means, what is my y, right? Because y represents cost. Look right here. If I have x equals 26, because we said x represents the number of children. And instead of struggling with that, if you have the equation, again, life is so easy. Y equals 12 times x, add it with 260, and you get yourself, I did this calculation ahead of time. It appears to be $576. Yes?
So how do you know that it was 10 children coming to 15?
Oh, I didn't know, no? No, the question did tell you that if you use 10, the y must be 380. The question said if you use 15, the y must be 440. So you can use any one of those and you would have gotten the same answer for B. Yes.
Isn't the answer
Yes, I wrote 572 in the answer key, and for whatever reason, I did not write 572 on the board. Thank you for correcting. Okay. So I hope you appreciate, right? We are at a stage in grade 9 as we get ready for next year, where proportional reasoning only goes so far as estimating. Now we want to be as accurate as possible, and so we're at the high school level. It's no longer just guessing or estimating. That will be good up to grade 8, but we need to sort of shed that skin as we move on in grade 9 and grade 10. Example test questions. My request to you for the remaining period of time, which we have 25, just under 30, is try example 4, which is a very similar reproduction to example 3. And then, of course, as many of these practice questions as you can. The answer is here. If this is too much for you and you don't want to do whatever, well, that's on you. Maybe you want to do numbers 1, 3, 5 and save 2, 4, 6 for later. I will leave that decision to you. Please do your very best. You've got 25 minutes. Try not to slack, and we'll see you tomorrow. Right?